Right, today we have come to Ellesmere Port, specifically to the National Waterways Museum, or the Canal Museum as some people call it. So we're going to go and have a look around and have a look at how people lived back in the days, Victorian days, when they lived on board canal boats and barges. Okay, we're inside. We've paid a child price for George and an adult price for John, and I got in for free as a carer. And the beauty of the tickets is they last all year, so there's annual tickets. So we've got a little map. There's lots of things to see. They've got cottages where the canal workers would have lived. They've got the canal boats that you can look at. So it should be interesting.
One thing, if I can add to that they were very kind and they offered to switch the volume of the film up for me as well.
We've got a lock here, a canal lock, so that the boats could travel between two different levels on the canal.
4 boats to go up and down hills. Behind us currently it's empty of water, and when it's full I'll be able to talk it through better, but it's about as deep as 4 of me standing on my shoulders. It's about 10-12 metres deep all in all.
Okay.
And it's not particularly wide. It's only one boat wide, as it were, so maybe only a couple or 3 metres wide.
Yeah.
And behind me to my right there are the top set of gates, and far over there are the bottom set of gates. Now how this works is there are only 2 moving parts in effect. The big lock gates and the paddles which are part of the lock gates. So to get a boat in, we have to first open the first set of gates. Now we can't do that right now because the water level is not equal. So we can push on this all we want, but the weight of water up the hill is holding those gates shut. When it equalises, I can actually show you that. So boats sailed into the lock. What happens then, do we think? What do we need to do? We need to close the gates behind it, of course, don't we? Then we need to figure out a way of letting the water out of the gates so we can go further down, don't we? You'll notice that there's some metal work with some cogs and gears, and at the far end those are attached to the lock gate itself. What we do is we use a windlass. It's a metal handle. We attach that to it. We crank the handle round. The gears turn and mesh together and lift a flap which is covering a big gap in the bottom of the gate. So once we've done that, the water can flow through. And that's as simple as it is, really. So the water then goes through the lock gate, the boat descends to the next level down, and once it's equal again, once the water levels on either side are equal, the boat can sail out into the bottom basin. From there, it could have unloaded its cargo, or it could have transshipped its cargo onto the Manchester Ship Canal. So if you look over on the very far side, we've got another set of locks. You can see those at the far side of the basin, and they lead out onto the Manchester Ship Canal. From there, ships could sail into Manchester, or they can sail out all over the world. It's what put Ellesmere Port as an important central sort of trade hub of the canal network. It's why all the warehouses are here. It's why Ellesmere Port itself is here.
Yeah.
Because the Shropshire Union Canal comes to here, the Manchester Ship Canal comes to here, the River Mersey is not far away, and all of those things combine to mean this is an important hub of trade all across the country.
So you're the transport hub of canal boats?
For this part of the country, yes. Yeah. So the canal boats can come in, they can park into the basins, the large areas. There are big warehouses for the cargo to be loaded into and out of, and the ship canal can transport that on. But also the ships can bring cargo in, so things from North America, things from all over the world.
Yeah.
And then it can go all over the country by following the canal network into inland. So the water is just about level. So now we can quite easily, he says, push the gate open. And I'm pushing with my back because it means I'm using the strongest parts of my leg, my body, my legs, to push it. And also, if I were to fall over, I'm just going to fall straight down onto the floor. If I'm pushing it forwards and I trip, I could cartwheel over the bar and into the lock.
And then you could potentially drown or...
Yeah.
You could. Because the locks, as I said, have only got two moving parts. They rely on water pressure to make them work. So when we've got the paddles open, the currents flowing through the lock generate air pockets under the water, which mean that you would not be able to swim in there. I've got a life jacket on. When we work near the locks, we wear life jackets for that reason. You wouldn't swim, and the currents would suck you under the water, unfortunately. So these are quite dangerous features for being so practical and so useful. To go back up the hill, we repeat the process. In the lock, there's about half a swimming pool's worth of water. It pushes against the gates with the force of about 3 tons. So you can see why you can't open the gates when the water level is uneven. And once that water has washed away, escaped out into the bottom basin, to us, basically it's gone. The canal is fed from reservoirs at the highest point, which for this canal, the Shropshire Union Canal, is somewhere near Wolverhampton. And those reservoirs are at the highest point, and the water basically just feeds down the canal. Every time you open a lock and water flows down, it keeps going down. There is no way of getting it back up the canal. There are some canals that have pumping stations to pump water back up to the top of their flights of locks, but we don't have that here. So
how long does it take for the level to even itself out?
If you've got both sets of paddles open, so there's 2 gates, one from either side of the lock, and there's 2 sets of paddles, one on each side. If you open them both at the same time, the lock can be empty in a few minutes, and it can refill in a few minutes. But if you had a boat in there, that would be quite a rough and bumpy journey, so you don't generally have it go as fast as it can.
So we've come down this way. This is where the machine workshops are. We've had that very kind man explain to us exactly how the lock works and demonstrate it, but obviously without the boat in it. This is the Victoria Arm, which was named for the new Queen in 1837. So it runs from the lower basin to serve 2 warehouses. One warehouse stored pottery materials to go to the area around Stoke-on-Trent, and the other stored finished iron goods to be exported around the world from Liverpool or Birkenhead docks. And it says this dry dock still sees occasional use. Oh, you can smell the oil.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
So we've got all sorts of different engines. You can smell the...
Until you just get out.
Okay, thank you. Just got lots of different engines on display here. It's the Yarwood's compound steam engine.
At the moment it's being driven by electricity.
But it's being driven by electricity at the moment. So we can see. So this is the blacksmith's forge. There's somebody working in here. He's got a business, he makes gates and he does lessons in blacksmithing as well. So this is where the canal company's ironwork was made. Hello. And it says they have a skill that goes back thousands of years. And this is the museum's resident blacksmith, Alex, and he's been self-employed here since 2004.
Wow.
And he does bespoke work such as gates and railings, which we can see some of them here. We've got the stables where the horses would have been kept. Obviously there's no horses in here now. We've got all sorts of things. Oh, they've got the really colourful buckets that you associate with people who lived on the canals. and their life was on there. That was their business.
Ah.
We've come across to the other side of the canal, across a bridge. We're going across another one. Gosh, that's a long way down. So we've got one here that is obviously a cargo boat. So if we just have a look, we can just step on and have a look inside. Oh my goodness, that is tiny. They've literally got like 2 benches that have got blankets on that they use as beds, or a bed. There's a cupboard and there's a little cooker there, and it's quite the step down to get inside, but for the size of the boat, the living area is tiny. It's really, really tiny. And you look at the length of the boat standing at the front here, and they've got that tiny living area. Wow. So we've got another boat here. It says you're welcome to climb on board. Now how this one works, it's got steps up and then it's got steps down, because you're going over the edge of the boat to get in. Okay, so this boat apparently carried coal, and it's called George. It's a good name for a boat. And this area in here, now I'm standing up and this is the roof of the living area. So if I duck down, this is where they would have lived. So it looks like something like a little primary school, infants playhouse. It's that sort of height and the table's that sort of level, but this was actually where they lived, and it's tiny. So over there we've got a boat going through the lock. So where it's there, it looks like it's just a man's head floating above the water, is actually just been through the lock. Boat we just saw going through the lock, coming in. You look at the modern boat, the modern barge, all of the length of it is living accommodation instead of a tiny little cramped bit as it was in the Victorian times. I know which one I would prefer personally. Look at that, it's got proper French windows, proper French doors.
No.
To go out onto the deck instead of some tiny little door like we saw on the older barges, as they would have had then. Okay. So we've got another boat here that we're welcome to climb aboard on. Arr. So if you want to do this one, John, this has got steps up, it goes to the left then and down.
Okay.
And you've got to be careful because there's some very low beams. So I'm guessing in this bit here, that was their living accommodation, which again looks really, really tiny. Really, really small. So this is the area of the cottages, complete with the cobblestones for that added extra authenticity, and an old red phone box. It's an old style phone with the A and B buttons, and it tells you how to make a call, to call a number on any other exchange.
Oh.
And it's got there, where you put the money in, it's got shillings, sixpence and penny. On the pavement, looks like the children have been playing hopscotch because it's chalked onto the pavement. We've got some old adverts there and an old post box in the wall that says VR, so that's for Victoria. And there's an old bicycle there outside the cottage. And we can go into these. We can go into the cottages. And these are wheelchair accessible because they've got ramps. Clearly the boats aren't, but we didn't expect them to be anyhow.
No, they're old boats, just wooden boats.
This is Porter's Row, and it represents the 30s. We've got the table set for tea. There's some scones and there's a trifle. There's the fireplace and the sofa in front of the fireplace and the piano. They've got the slippers down there as well, warmed by the fire. We've got the kitchen. So they've got the old range there. They've got the sink with just the cold tap. Oh, this was the gas cooker. That looks like a death trap. And there's the electric light with the old wires. We've got a gas lamp. We've got the table there where they prepare the food. There's a vacuum in the corner there. This is where they've got traditional games that the children would have played. We've got some on the table there. We've got the old style prams there. Another one there. This looks like Jenga, but it's called Tumble Tower. Wonder if that's where they got the idea for Jenga from then. And then they've got some bits of rope that you can throw over the hoops there. They've got skittles, they've got hoops. We've just wandered into the house next door. So this is their kitchen. So it looks like they may well have hot and cold water here. It looks a bit more modern than the one next door. It doesn't have the range. And it's got the cooker there, which looks like it's an electric oven. Yes, it's an electric oven. So they've got the bureau here, they've got Singer sewing machine. These have got a TV. Black and white TV.
I don't know what we're watching.
Something about the waterways. And they've got the ducks on the wall. And these have got an electric bar fire. So this must be a little bit more modern than the house next door. Whereas the house next door was the 30s, this is from the 50s. There is some differences, but I don't see major differences really.
There's more similarities than differences.
Yeah, there are some, but I don't see any major ones. So we've come into the house that's the other side of the 1930s house, and this is the early 1900s, when they've got piped gas providing lighting to both downstairs rooms, and they've got running water from a single cold tap and a flushing toilet in the backyard. So they basically lived in this one room. Well, this was their best room because you've got the table and the chairs. They've got, yes, it's an organ. You come into the kitchen here. They also have a range, like the 1930s house. They've got the washing hanging up from the ceiling. I think those are coming back into fashion. And they've got the cupboard there with their best china on. Let's see the kettle sitting on the range there. They've got the dolly tub that you pick up and wash like that. And they've got all sorts of pots and pans up there. And straight up there, John's bashed something. And what have we got in here? Oh yeah, they'd have done the washing in there. There's even an old dolly peg in there. The lid on. If we turn around this way, the wringer, the mangle, where they'd have put the clothes through to get as much water out as they could. It really does make you appreciate automatic washing machines.
Yes.
And in the backyard, they've got an outside toilet that's there. So basically you've got a bench with a hole in it. There's the cistern, there's the chain. Oh, don't we love indoor plumbing? So the final house in the row is the 1830s. This one, well, it represents a house that was built in 1833, which was still new. By modern standards, it seems very basic, with no gas or electricity and no running water. Light would have come from candles and oil lamps, and the open fires in the kitchen and parlour were used for heating and cooking. Water came from a pump on Primrose Hill on the far side of the lower basin. None of the original 12 cottages had flush toilets. Instead, they had an earth closet behind the houses which served the entire street. Despite the lack of modern services, a house such as this would have been regarded as a comfortable working class dwelling of the time. So it's got a crib there for the baby, it's got the fire there with space to put the kettle, I guess, on the top by the side. Really, really basic chairs. And there's the candles. This is the kitchen with a really small range. There's the bathtub and the irons in the windowsill that they would have used. Wow. And the toilet is essentially a bench with a hole in it, with a bucket underneath the hole. So this was 4 houses from Porter's Row, going from the 1830s to the early 1900s to the 1930s, and the very end one, the 1950s. Some swans here who obviously don't mind the reeds, who were saying before it looks like you could just walk on this because it's covered in that many weeds, but obviously you wouldn't want to because it's water. And the swans here are just proving the point. And we've come into the island warehouse. This was Lily. Short section is part of the stern of a 61-foot long wooden boat called Lily, which was built as a horse-drawn boat on the Leeds and Liverpool Canal. There's a workshop.
My apprenticeships for 7 years, and then maybe I'll move on to another yard, broaden the experience.
Peer through the window. The shed provides the boatyard painter with a space to work and store his materials. Water cans, handbowls, dippers, tunnel lamps and stools, etc. could be decorated here. So if we have a look, they're just really, really colourful, aren't they? Some of the artistry is brilliant. That one there, where it's got the house painted on it, it's fantastic, the artwork. Real artistry. Here's where they'd have made canvas sheets to keep the cargo dry on the boats. This was showing finishing the boat. They put stoves, coal boxes, pumps, pump box stands, uprights, top planks, beams and box mast and chimney. So that's the kind of stuff that would be being made here. Here's fender making. So it's kind of like a bumper really for a boat. The fenders were to protect boats from bumps and scrapes, traditionally made of rope and all sorts of different shapes and sizes to fit a particular boat. This was an icebreaker boat. So if the canal froze, they'd need to break the ice so that they could keep going. This is 1962, the Grand Union Canal froze and traffic was stopped for 16 weeks, and often only a basic subsistence wage was paid to his boatmen and family during the layoffs. So ice would jam the locks and boats would get stuck, and in order to get the traffic moving, many carrying companies and canal owners had ice-breaking boats. So this is an ice-breaking boat here that shows how an icebreaker boat worked. Turn the wheel anti-clockwise to find out. Okay, so basically 2 people would hold onto a bar in the middle of the boat and just rock it from side to side to break the ice up. It sounds like hard work to me. So they just stood in the middle of this boat and held onto the bar and rocked it from side to side to break up the ice. Hard work. So we've come upstairs and there's a canal boat here that we can go on and have a look. And again, this shows us so we can see how small it is. They'd have a whole family living in there.
The people on the canal used to have these years.
They must have got on really, really well, because it is tiny.
And the same
That's where they would have gone in through that door there. Into there. And they've tried to make it as homely as possible. There's all sorts of trinkets there and so on. But it's still really, really small. We've got an example of a sack chute to slide sacks of soda ash from the upper floors of an ICI warehouse into the hold of a boat.
Oh.
Looks like a very, very twisty slide. Right, go forward to your phone. As if you're holding onto a bar in front of you, now rock. Back and forward. Hold on to, like you're holding onto a bar in front of you.
Keep it going. Yeah.
Not like that. You just fell into the icy canal, John.
Come on.
We've had a really lovely few hours wandering around the boat museum here. It is pretty accessible. Wheelchairs can get round, and if you've got pushchairs you can get those round as well. But you can get wheelchairs around. The only place that you can't is if you want to go and have a look on the boats, because obviously there's steps up to the side and then over and then back down again. I think considering the nature of the museum, it is really accessible apart from the boats, as I said. There is a boat that you can go on if you've got a wheelchair, and that's inside the exhibition hall. So that's inside and it's got ramps up and so on. And you can also go and look in the houses because they've got wheelchair ramps too. So it's a really interesting day. And it's pretty good that you get an annual pass when you buy a ticket to come, so we could come back any time between now and this time next year. Definitely recommend it.
Definitely.
Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give us a thumbs up. And if you don't already, please hit the subscribe button and you'll never miss one of our weekly uploads again. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.